Say something.
Testing 1, 2.
Okay. Yeah, it was blocked. So now I hear you. I'm recording.
Okay.
I'm recording my local microphone, and I hear you.
Okay. Well, that works. And it looks like I've got both FaceTime and local audio this round too. So I think that means we'll have a backup if something else happens. We'll see.
Was not ideal.
No. But hey, at least we've figured out there's some combination. I think there are 2 bugs. I think there's something in initiating the call or receiving the call that's not related to audio hijack. And then I think there's obviously the audio related bug related to audio hijack, if that makes sense. Because I don't see how audio hijack would have terminated the FaceTime call when it rang a partial time on my end.
So, I've only had Tahoe installed for like 12 hours on this computer. I like a lot of it, but this was, I'm based on what the podcast I listened to where people were talking about the betas, I'm not surprised that this has happened. And I'm not surprised that Rogue Amoeba was like, hey, yeah, there's a problem and it's not us. So that's fine.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't encountered other issues so far. With all the other ancillary stuff that I deal with, I wonder what the audio thing specifically is. I mean, I read Rogue Amoeba's write-up, so I understand that there's something about routing internally to the system that's probably the issue, but I'm just really surprised that I haven't encountered it in any of the other apps that I use.
That's good.
Yes, definitely. Because I didn't want to have to go back to previous OS.
Oh man, no, I don't want to do that either. I like a lot of the UI changes in Tahoe. Like I know people, I've heard people say it's the least liquid glass, or seems to have the least liquid glass effects. But I really like it, except for I don't like how rounded I don't like how the rounded corners are more rounded. I feel like there's, I don't know, gaps. I guess I'll get used to it. It's it's like I expect it's one of those things where I'm just going to get used to it after staring at it for however long. I really don't like this FaceTime window coming up. I like just having the FaceTime squircle on the top right, but the window keeps coming up, and now it's coming up and taking focus. It took focus. It didn't take. So I have audio hijack, and then I have notes, and I have notes and focus, and they're taking up the full screen, and the FaceTime window is behind both of these windows, and it just popped up in front of the one of audio hijack because it was not in focus. It didn't take focus over notes, which it was in focus, and I don't like that, and I'm concerned that's going to keep happening. I also the other thing I don't like about is how much padding is in between elements in the windows, or I'm using a HTML1 term to describe the thing I don't like. Does that make sense? How much I don't like how much padding is in the windows?
I think I follow. You're talking about the between the elements and the edge of the window, or are you talking about like which part of the window, I guess is the...
Yeah, that's so I feel like there's just wasted space. Like
yes.
I opened up a Finder window, and I love that the small icons can go even smaller. It's great.
I like the more vibrant colors of stuff within the Finder.
Me too. Except for I turned off the colors of icons, made them the glass look just to see if I'd like it, and I don't think it's going to last. I don't think I'm going to make it. Actually, as we speak, I want to change it now because I thought I was going to try to make it, but then as I have, it's everywhere. If it was just the dock, I would leave it because and that's the way I turned it on because I never look at the dock. But now I don't even like not seeing the colors in the dock, and it just ends up being less functional. And because I really do pay attention to like the colors actually make a difference. It does help with the recognition. But yeah, just like I'm looking at a Finder window, and there's like a back and forward button, and then you have like the you can choose like if I want to look at the icon view, the list view, the column view, and is it cover flow? Is it called cover flow still?
I assume so. I've never heard of a different name for it.
Gallery. It's now called Gallery. For me, the only good option, the only option that I care for is column view. I change everything to column view, and things that don't have a column view, like Google Drive, fuck Google Drive. I mean, bad Google Drive. I don't like because there's no column view. And
See, I dislike column view. I like list view.
see, column view is list view but better.
I guess it depends on your use case. Like I can understand why you would like column view, but as I'm looking at media and what's used, I do a lot of expanding and collapsing folders in the same window, and list view works really well for that.
See, we like the same thing, except for you like to go vertical and I like to go horizontal.
Right.
It's because list view and column view are the exact same thing. It's just like, do you want to go vertical or horizontal? And I happen to enjoy going. I prefer this. I think because I'm not sure why. But but I don't mean to yuck on your yum.
I would assume that it's just a difference in when we started and manipulate, or the time frame and age at which we were playing with manipulation of view. Let's try this again. The time and age when we were trying and working with the different ways to manipulate user interfaces. There we go. Finally got that out. But because I was doing so much with the keyboard in list views to be able to quickly expand and compare, it just feels natural, and column view didn't come about until later.
Oh, interesting, because
and column view wasn't cross-platform.
So I never started using column view until I started using Mac OS that I can think of. Way back in the day, I was a big fan of DOS Shell. This was MS-DOS Windows 3.1 days, which is it's kind of a combination of list view and it's got some of the. It's more like an FTP. It looks more like an FTP software where you have a left and a right, and then you expand things. But I think the reason why I don't know the keyboard shortcuts for list view, and like when I'm looking at list view and I have to double click. I don't have the triangles, because normally in list view don't you have triangles to expand and
yeah. Well, little brackets. It's not a complete closed triangle. It's just the greater than, less than.
Oh, well, my list view doesn't show that. Like I have to double click on something. So I wonder what has changed here. So anyway, I look at column view and I use the keyboard way, like to me it's like I use the keyboard, and I think that's why I like it, because you can use the keyboard to navigate. I know I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast, but the more the more you can keep your hands on the keyboard, I feel like the more of a power user you are. I don't know. You're faster. The keyboard is definitely faster.
Yes, 100%.
And I try to do as much in the keyboard as possible. I had a previous lead genius. It wasn't you, who said, the more you take your hands off the keyboard, the less I have something to the effect of the less respect I have for you as a computer user. I don't think she was that. When she said it, I don't think she was that.
It sounds like a good line. I mean, it's very similar to the whole like do not meddle in the affairs of sysadmins, for they are quick-tempered or something to that effect, or slow and quick to anger, or whatever. It's a play on the same quote.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a Bible. It sounds like a Bible verse.
Yeah, I can't remember the origin anymore. But I mean, it's been applied to most IT roles in one way or another.
Like Blondie, she's gonna get you. I don't know why I did, but I'm not digging on on the FaceTime screen, being like, "Hey, don't forget me." Don't, yeah, dude, go away. Oh, what if I minimize it?
I'd laugh if it popped back up.
Oh
just
man, if
for
it pops
spite.
back up, yeah, I know, right? I was like, I'm gonna file apple.com/feedback. Fucking fix this.
So, but this afternoon, I sat down to try to come up with a list of topics, and the very first line that I wrote was the entire thing I had for the longest time, which was just I don't even know anymore. Um,
Yeah, right.
and so
Oh,
then I
fuck! It
started.
popped back up and took focus.
Oh, I find that hilarious, just because it's. I mean, granted, I would be outraged as well if I had strong opinions on it, so I get it.
Where is your FaceTime window?
It is currently hidden behind notes.
Okay, so it's like I use a program called Moom because I like to have pixel perfect control over my windows and how much space they take up. I take that it's not pixel, but there was some application I used to use that was actually pixel perfect control. You could like it would show you your the edge of the window that you're moving is at this horizontal pixel and this vertical pixel, vertical column. And Moom is not quite that precise, but I have it. It works for me. I don't know what that old application was, and I can't find it. It has probably not been developed for since Snow Leopard days. Anyway, so I have like half of this. The bottom half of my screen is notes, and the top half of my screen is Audio Hijack, because Audio Hijack just does not do a vertical. It doesn't. It's not meant to be vertical, I guess. Anyway, and I had FaceTime hiding behind it, and it's bigger than the top or the bottom, and so, or it's, yeah, it just annoyed me, so I fixed it. I have it hiding behind notes, so maybe it'll leave me alone. I didn't do a really good job of explaining it. It's not really that interesting. I've taken up way too much time talking about this. Please resume.
Well, the whole thing was that I really didn't have a clue, and obviously, like, I have plenty of thoughts on things, but it's like all my thoughts have also been said at this point for the most part, and by different people or by me or whatever. And so I was struggling for what to record about. And so the first few bullets were just recent things. It's like, I don't know, maybe. And then I thought, well, I could always talk about something that's far more fun and interesting, but I don't know that that's really that much fun and interesting to talk about only a few games in. And that led to a couple of thoughts about local teams, I'll put it that way. And just kind of left it all at that and walked away. And then I stumbled across this couple of paragraphs on social media. I thought, that's actually an interesting concept, but I don't know if I have a lot to talk about it. So that is just a long introduction to where the notes came from, and that I'm not overly attached to any of it. Or we could try to talk about all of it. Like, I have strong feelings and opinions without having a strong desire to talk about any one item, I think, is where I land. So, with that kind of introduction, I'm going to toss it to you and say, does anything sound, from this list or otherwise, sound like it would be fun to chat about first? Or should we just kind of meander through, starting with football?
Well, I don't even know anymore has me thinking.
It's tough, I mean,
I saw, yeah, I saw a thing. I saw a thing that really put things into perspective, and that it was a headline of an article. I don't know if it was even an article. It was a social media post, and the headline it was made to look like a headline, and the headline said, "The United States government is under attack by the United States government." And the attack started in January with the Department of Government Efficiency and so forth. And so I feel like I read that this afternoon, and that's just been in my head, and it just sort of fits in. Like, we're seeing the legitimate deconstruction of this government. And it was already the corruption that has been in place for the decades-long corruption has gotten us here, and we are seeing a dismantling of the Constitution, the democracy, and people. The good thing is that people are fighting for it, but it is not a good time to be an American. And we're seeing the first attacks on free speech, like literal attacks on free. I mean, the blatant ones.
We're seeing the first somewhat successful attacks, I think, maybe, because this has been building. Again, this is not the first teasing of the idea. It's just the first time there's been a more overt threat stated and action has happened as a result.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. I just didn't say it in the right words the way that you did. That was really a much better way of saying it. Yeah.
And the only reason I want to make sure that it's mentioned that way is just because we've had years of the same BS being spewed that hasn't had action attached to it for whatever reason. Some of it being safeguards in place, some of it being lack of power, some of it being just people willing to stand up, etc. But the main reason I want to mention it is because we've heard it so long that is part of what somewhat allowed this to go further, because it was like, well, we've heard the same stuff over and over and over. Surely it's not going to go any further. And then there was another line crossed. And yes, there are some other circumstances that also make that more plausible this time, as far as actual Trump loyalists in certain other positions that were not there previously. I mean, there is a different set of circumstances, but it's not that different from what we've already seen over and over. And so, like, my theory of kind of to wrap this into a bit of a nutshell is that a lot of people just assumed it was kind of more of the same, and then a line was crossed and action spurred on as a result, which is all positive. The question is just whether there will be continued action or if it just gets worn down so much, or that maybe the next one happens in such a way that the response isn't as swift, or, there are plenty of what ifs you could to posit, in that scenario to make it more dire of an outcome. But this certainly will not be the last that we see of this attempt to censor speech in some way.
Right. For context, we're referring to I can't remember what the name of his show is, but Jimmy Kimmel's show, his late show on, is it Jimmy Kimmel Tonight or something like that?
It's either is it the Tonight Show with Jimmy Kimmel? No,
that's Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah,
so but it was a Jimmy
Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because wait, what is Colbert's show? The Tonight Show? No.
Colbert's show is canceled.
Well, no, but he's still going.
I know, but
it's the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and then the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and it must be Late Night with Jimmy Kimmel. Are you typing? So we're getting real time feedback.
We're going to look it up and see. Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Jimmy Kimmel Live. Okay. So for a long time, ABC did not have a competitor to CBS or NBC in that slot for late night shows. I remember when it was Nightline with Ted Koppel, and it was a news show. I'm like, my family was watching that instead of watching Letterman or Leno.
I remember Dateline. I don't know if we ever watched it or if it just happened to be
Nightline.
on. But...
So Dateline was an NBC show with Paula Shore, but Nightline was with Ted Koppel. So, but you're not. I mean, that is a show, and it's kind of like the other episodes ago when I was confusing Sports Night with News Night.
Yes.
And the Newsroom. Thank you.
Wait, too many shows with similar names.
Yes. So Dateline was an NBC show, and Nightline was an ABC show. And I remember, I think Ted Koppel was British, but he didn't have a British accent because I think he moved to the United States at a relatively young age, but he did have British sayings because I remember hearing him talking about people making or snickering at him when he asked for a rubber at some point. I guess he was in middle school or high school, and because I guess in England the eraser that you put on your an eraser is called a rubber over there, and over here it's a prophylactic. So that's in my head. But yeah, Ted Koppel on Nightline on ABC. That was in the same time slot as the Late Show and the Tonight Show. There's just more news after the news, the local evening news.
I honestly don't know. I don't remember. Well, I guess I wouldn't remember it. So I was going to say I don't remember what my parents watched, but so growing up, we had the primary TV, but my parents did have a TV in their room, and so
I had that
at a certain
that
point,
house.
yeah. So at a certain point, they would retire and watch whatever they were watching, and if there was something on the TV, it was whatever we happened to just kind of leave it playing while we did other stuff.
I can remember. So we had the primary TV, and then my parents had a TV in their bedroom, and that's how it was for a long, long time. And then I remember at one point, I got a TV in my bedroom, and the Nintendo was connected to it, but then that went away, and then I think I got my parents' TV for a brief period of time, and they had the Nintendo connected to it, and then because it didn't. So when we first, at some point, we moved to an apartment after my dad finished medical school, we moved from Mobile, Alabama to Bristol, Tennessee. And the master bedroom in the apartment that we moved into was a smaller living space. It was bigger if you counted the bathroom than the other two rooms in the house or in the apartment, but it was smaller if you didn't count the bathroom. And because it was smaller, I don't know. I think maybe they didn't want to put their bed in. They had a king size bed, and maybe I don't remember the deal, but they took one of these standard bedrooms that did not have a bathroom on it, and so I ended up with the master bedroom, and so somehow their TV was in my room and my Nintendo was connected to it, and that was awesome. And I don't think we lived there for an entire year. I think we were out we moved into a rental house pretty soon, months later, because I don't remember having. I remember we moved in August. I remember that we had a Christmas there, but I don't remember having a second Christmas there. And so maybe we didn't move until August. I don't remember. So when we moved into that rental house, the TV went back to their bedroom. And I think the first time we had a third screen was when I think I had an uncle that let us borrow his computer in 1990 something, 94 maybe. That was the first time we had a third screen in the house.
I don't remember where it came from. I remember eventually getting a portable TV that was in my room. The little squat black and white thing.
Yep. My grandparents had one of those.
And it seems like after that, at some point, there was a small 13-inch TV or something that I managed to get a hold of. I don't remember enough about it at this point, but I do remember what limited TV I had access to in my room was not something that really kept my attention.
Yeah. I remember the little black and white TV, and you tuned it like a radio instead of flipping channels. And I just remember being allowed to watch that at my grandparents' house over Christmas break. So I guess we were at the time this would have been happening. My parents, we were living in Mobile. My dad was in medical school, and when class was out, because my dad didn't have at the time. My dad did not have any family close by. Most of his family was still in the Middle East, in Jordan, and my mom's family was in Huntsville. She was from Huntsville. And so, basically, I guess the first full day, the first day of Christmas break when the semester was over, we would drive up to Huntsville and we would spend the whole break in Huntsville with my grandparents. And that's not a short amount of time. I mean, I don't know how long before Christmas, but Christmas, changes the day. But I remember going, and we'd be there at least several days before Christmas, and then. we were going home after New Year's, so that's more than a week. And I gotta imagine, like, I wonder where my grandparents were like driving me crazy. They're driving. It's like because there was like my sister and I, and my parents. And anyway, at that point in time, I just remember getting to watch Johnny Carson on the black and white TV.
I remember watching a lot of Johnny Carson, but I think all of it was like purchase of a box set on VHS.
This was I remember this. This was Johnny Carson when it was like when his show was on TV, and to me in my head, I know it's not the case, but Johnny Carson's black and white.
Yeah, I mean, it was aired that way at least for most of its run.
Really, I did not know that. I remember one time his guest on the show was Madonna, and I had some feelings about that. I was like, I don't know what these feelings are, but I like them.
It was a nice digression from Kimmel.
So Kimmel, yes. So back to the Jimmy Kimmel Live. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Is there an exclamation point like Yahoo?
There is.
Oh, excellent. Anyway, Jimmy Kimmel's not someone that I watch particularly often. Like I don't really watch Jimmy Fallon either. I don't watch either of the Jimmys, but I will watch Colbert on. I find his monologue on YouTube most days, and or I'll get in a run where I'm watching it most days, and then some reason I'll stop, and then I'll go a week or two without watching any. But then if something happens in the news, I was like, I want to hear Colbert's take. I keep calling him Colbert. Yeah, he still goes by Colbert. Anyway, recently he had he revived the word from the Colbert Report. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did.
Oh yeah, I forgot how good the Colbert Report was. It was truly good.
In talking about all of it, I saw a rumor that there may end up being a collaboration between a number of the late night hosts.
I've heard that as well.
Independent journalism.
You know, the company I think that might back them and give them the free reign. If I had to pick one of who would give them free reign, I would expect it to be Netflix. Not that Netflix is good; they're a corporation.
Yeah, but they would be able to see the value of letting it run.
That's what I was going to say. They're looking at the dollar signs, and they're like, we have an audience for this. We have an audience that we respect. And so in that regard, I think it's good. But it's about the money. But they understand the art to some degree. So,
yeah, it'll be real interesting to see what happens. I hope some sort of collaboration like that happens, and it goes the way that I would want it to.
So I think Jon Stewart has signed on to continue hosting the Daily Show on Mondays through next year, or maybe it's just through 2025. I'm not sure. But
did you see the his rare non-Monday
his
hosting?
Thursday? Yes, yeah. I did. It was lovely. We've been trying to bring it back around to the topic multiple times, and we keep jumping, slipping. I don't know. You figure out.
It's all related.
Yes. Yeah. He. It's close to home because that's like his job, Stephen Colbert. Like it's based on the freedom of speech in this country that we have long either had or at least had the illusion of. And now you can say, that illusion is fading, or the reality is fading. Something, yeah, it's under attack for sure. And the thing about what Jimmy Kimmel said that got him canceled and fired, I guess canceled is the wrong word because the populace did not. The populace cancels, the corporations fire. But I think his show was canceled, so I'm messed up here. Anyway, There's
Well,
cancel and then there's cancel.
the verbiage that they used was indefinitely suspended.
That's right. That's right. Well, it started with Sinclair, correct? They own local
So
affiliates.
I believe so. And I think that's why. So if we back up ever so slightly, I think it was a local Sinclair station or Sinclair owned station that had a problem with it, that must have reported it through Sinclair. And so Sinclair, I think at that point, is who lobbied the complaint, so to speak. I don't know 100% certain, but I heard something to the effect that it was a localized station first and then filtered up through ownership.
So I think that listeners, oh man, nation, because I forgot about that. I forgot about that nation. No, I think that okay. If you want to, the information's out there. But what the first, I'll speak from a first person point of view, which could be flawed, and but well, the information could be incorrect, but my account is not incorrect, and that is the first thing that I saw, the first news that I saw about this was that Sinclair, a company that owns a large number of ABC affiliates, local stations, decided not to air the show. So that meant that like if a non-Sinclair owned affiliate would, like if ABC was airing it nationally, non-Sinclair affiliates were showing it, and then Sinclair affiliates were not. That was my first hearing of it. And Sinclair is not a small, it's not a small market. They don't have a slight number. I don't know how many they have, but I remember reading that it's not a small number. It's a relatively large chunk of affiliates. And then the next thing I heard, that precipitated into ABC and Disney putting him on suspension. But yes. I see in your notes you have a mention of Nexstar, and I'm not familiar with. Is Nexstar another affiliate owner?
I saw it referenced in a headline talking about Sinclair, just lumping them in. So I assume so based on context. Nexstar might be larger and be kind of a partial owner of some division in ABC. Like I don't know exactly what the relationship is, but contextually, what I saw was here in Alabama, Sinclair owns the local ABC affiliate. So local news reported that Sinclair and Nexstar were refusing to air Kimmel, even though he had been reinstated. His show had been reinstated. And so based on that context, I assume Nexstar also owns affiliates, but it could be something larger or different. I don't know 100%. We could absolutely search it, but I'm not vested enough with any interest in Nexstar to care.
So it's Nexstar Media Group. I'm making you, even though you don't care, I'm bringing it here. It's an affiliate group based in, it's headquartered in Texas, and I guess it has headquarters in Manhattan and Chicago as well. But it looks like it's they own it. It's a media group, so it's like Sinclair. It owns ABC affiliates. I don't know if it owns other things, but that's what it appears to be.
And this to me is problematic as well. To an extent, sure, it's a business decision on your part, and there are certain rules governing what you can and can't do. And apparently they are within their rights to decide not to air something from ABC as an affiliate. And that means that any other local station who is not an affiliate could actually pick up the show, I think is the way it works, or something to that extent. But I still find this problematic because if you are broadcasting something as the parent company, in my mind, that should be required to be broadcast through your affiliates. Otherwise, what's to stop you from saying, we're not going to broadcast the national news, we're going to preempt it with our own local news instead.
Well, that's the thing. There isn't anything.
Right.
I mean,
I'm explaining
yeah,
the reason I find this to be problematic.
It hasn't necessarily been an obvious problem, but this, here's the problem. The obvious problem happened this week or last week.
Correct. This week.
Yeah, this week. Man, the weeks are.
Well, I mean, I guess both last week to start the process, and then this week with the reinstatement of the show and the affiliates still electing not to broadcast it. Which, granted, that's also, there's only so much power that you have as a local affiliate anyway, when you can catch all the interesting stuff streamed on other platforms that aren't your affiliate. Like I couldn't tell you the last time I had to get something via the local ABC affiliate. So I can also make the case that it's a dying medium to an extent. But part of why I have problem with it is, let's just say we're in a disaster scenario of some sort where I couldn't access streaming media to get the information that I was after and had to rely on broadcasts from a larger company to a local affiliate for dissemination. And this scenario occurred with something like a national news segment, or, take your pick on something that would be useful, right? That's a problem, at least from my perspective, because it interferes with my access to what should be public information.
So I remember this happening in the 90s, but it was with a sitcom. I think in the early 90s, maybe I can't remember if it was Murphy Brown or if it was the show that Ellen DeGeneres had. I can't remember what her name or her show was, but I remember Vice President Quayle in a speech referenced Murphy Brown, the character in the show Murphy Brown, being a single parent, having a child on her own, as a decline in family values. But a quick search says that local affiliates did not refuse to air that, so it must have been Ellen. And I think it was just called Ellen, and that was a sitcom in the 90s. And yeah, in 97. The local Birmingham refused to air the episode where she comes out as gay.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, neither am I. So I mean, it's the same sort of thing. And I don't know if I remember I'm assuming other affiliates, other in similar conservative markets with conservative audiences didn't play that show as well. So they had alternative programming at that time.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like while in many scenarios it's something that you could say is a loosely defined business decision for whatever reason, the fact that you could still pursue the same censorship of media for something that's not trivial. I mean, it's just the whole concept of this being a thing is problematic.
Well, I think what's problematic is,
well, there are a lot more problems, but yeah, go ahead.
It's like Jimmy Kimmel didn't say anything untrue, and he didn't even say anything that was particularly inflammatory from an objective standpoint.
So I think what was pointed to finally that could be theoretically untrue, the Tyler Robinson, isn't that the name? The guy that shot Kirk?
I hadn't heard his name until just now.
Taylor Robinson. I don't remember. It's something to that effect. Either way, the statement was, or my understanding is that the statement was that he was MAGA, and that was technically not accurate. It's his family that was,
Yeah,
not necessarily him, or something to that effect. Like, we're talking the most minor of, like, loophole decision things that you could use to base it on. That's not even that controversial.
I don't think it's a loophole because he didn't. So I'll read. I'll read the quote, and this is what Jimmy Kimmel said that got him suspended, and it was, "We hit some new lows over the weekend." So, quote, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it." Unquote.
Yeah.
So
So
one of them is a little bit. I feel like you can, some people. I think some people will interpret that to be one of them being MAGA, but I think saying one of them, yeah, I'm okay making that a loose interpretation of fascist, fundamentalist, terrorist.
yeah, I mean, either way, at the end of the day, the big thing is that it was not a controversial statement. It was
No,
less controversial than a lot of other statements that have been made. And it was just a very ridiculous. It was used as a way just to target what was already desired, which was to take yet another critic of the administration off the air. That's it. And the fact that he said something where they could claim it was some level of offensiveness is the only thing that gave him any kind of foot in the door at the corporate level. The fact that something that minimal caused this to happen in the first place is even more problematic from the standpoint of ABC and Disney. And again, it's follow the money and you can see exactly why it happened. But the fact that it was allowed to go as far as it did without somebody saying this is frivolous and we'll take it up in court is problematic.
mm-hmm.
I mean, and again, I've used problematic so many times in a very short time frame, but all of it is just a big fucking shit show.
It really is. It's so disappointing. I gotta say, it's been really hard getting through some of this.
My hope is that this starts to give rise to more and more smaller voices coming kind of out of the woodwork and being that just really vocal crowd. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do.
We'll see if it happens, but I hope so. I hope that this is a turning point for it. I know I personally am certainly being more vocal on my platforms of choice than I have been in the past, specifically because of this kind of bullshit.
It's so. I mean, so here's the thing. I've had some lengthy discussions privately and publicly, and I can say, I did eventually come across something that Kirk said that I agreed with. But you know what? There's some things that Marjorie Taylor Greene said that I agree with. There's some things that Josh Hawley said that I agree with. But by and large, all of those people are just dirty bathwater. There's no baby there, and I'm willing to throw them out because they're not so special that they're the only ones saying that. But guess what? As long as they are not spreading misinformation, which is mostly not the case, they're free to say what they want to say, and I would defend their right to say that. And I would hope that people, the problem is that I don't know, they needed a martyr, and he wasn't a particularly well-educated person, and I'm surprised at some of the people that have said, well, he wasn't politically correct. And I was like, well, I don't care. And he goes, you're also taking this out of context. I was like, okay, what context makes this okay to say? And it's not. Like, well, I don't understand.
I mean, the biggest thing with this is that it's a bigger publicity play to try to draw attention from other things.
You are right.
I mean, that's all it. The memorial or political rally, whichever way you want to describe it, was a clear indication of that.
I mean, grifter's gonna grift.
But it's the part that bothers me. Well, there are a couple of parts, but one of the main parts that bother me are the kind of blind love for Kirk because of a label.
I 100%, like, that was in my head immediately. I'm like,
Um, and
you know,
obviously, we've talked about aspects of this plenty of times, but I can't not get over how many people I saw
it's shocking.
like sincerely expressing grief and everything else because of the fact that he was a self-proclaimed Christian.
Right, but none of I'm not really sure that there were any of the things that he said were aligned with the words of Jesus. And I've challenged some people. I was like, which of those things fit the teachings of Jesus?
So I did not do a deep dive. I did not even actually know Charlie Kirk's name other than from one instance prior to his assassination.
Oh
So
yeah, I only heard of him after he was shot, but before he died.
yeah. And so after his assassination, I knew the one quote, but thought, that could have been a red herring or a one-off or anything else. So let me just go look up quotes and just kind of scroll through. And my general consensus was that there was no correlation in positions taken or statements made or behaviors exhibited by him with anything that would conceptually represent Christianity other than self-proclamation of a label. And if that's the case, if that's all it takes for you, which we've seen that that's all it takes for a large part of the crowd, then that's your thing. You do you. But I'm going to continue to have a major problem with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was Christian about him other than the self-proclaimed label. And a lot of what I can't. Oh yeah, I think I told you in conversation, but I used a couple. Did I tell you? I was trying to speak to some people in a way that they might understand, like in some family members that are Christians. I tried to communicate in something that would be familiar to them, and I quoted a couple of Bible verses. I don't know if you're. Did we talk about this?
Not if it's recent.
It would have been after the. I guess it was after the last. No, I don't remember. I guess it's been 2 weeks since he was assassinated. Is that right?
I think so.
2 weeks.
Like at this point in time,
yeah, 2 weeks tomorrow because it was my birthday.
Okay.
So that was 2 weeks tomorrow. Yeah, I'm vamping because I'm trying to find. It may have been deleted. No. I quoted Matthew 7:15 through 16, or 15 and 16, and it was beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. It's right there. It's right there. You'll recognize them by their fruits. And the other was for Hosea 8:7, which is for they sow the wind and they shall reap the whirlwind. I thought those were really fitting.
I mean, the big, I guess the bigger concern is that yes, they're fitting, but they're fitting across other people in this administration as well.
Oh, for sure.
And so, well, I guess there's nothing in that though that claims that it would be a single individual either. Because the warning is more false prophets in general. Mm-hmm. I was confusing it ever so slightly with the Antichrist description.
Oh yes, okay. No, I don't think it was smart
because it's very similar.
Yeah, so it was. I thought those were. The thing is, like, I've seen. Well, first of all, I saw a thing. It's like, conservative Christians means you're not a Christian. It just means you're conservatives and you're trying to throw a Christian label, with it. So, I saw someone argue this. Somebody was saying trans women are not really women, and the counter argument were conservative Christians aren't really Christians; they're conservatives.
I mean, it's a valid comparison
Yeah, I thought it
because
was
at what point did you ever hear of conservative Jesus?
right. Well, then I've heard some people. One of the things I've heard people say, they're like, they'll quote other parts of the scripture of the, in the New Testament, and like that's not Christian. That's following the teachings of Paul. That's different than Christianity. Those are not the teachings of Christ. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Point being is like I'm not really sure. I here's an open, like, I'm not here trying to be right or one up anyone. This is my point of view, and if Charlie Kirk has said Christian things like that align with the teachings of Christ, then I'm happy to hear that in context. I'm happy to hear the soundbite of what somebody says aligns with Christ, and if if somehow I interpret it differently, I'd love to have that conversation as well. And the thing is, like, I'm not here to be right. I'm here to seek the truth, and the truth is more important than what I currently believe, should what I believe not be the truth. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after-show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. I liked the way that flowed, so I didn't want to speak too quickly. I agree wholeheartedly, obviously. We've talked about it enough times. I think that's pretty clear. The interesting thing, I just want to go back to the one statement, because I had not heard that. A differentiation between the teachings of Paul and the teachings of Christianity in general. Like what supports that? And you may not be aware, because this could have been a passing statement, but what drives that supposed viewpoint that you would have two separate doctrines available to you to follow within the same religious book? Know what I mean?
Yeah. So,
it sounds very much like a scapegoat argument of, I don't really want to agree with this particular thing, and we're going to toss in the whole interpretation written by man can be skewed thing because of it. But then you have to do that for everything.
You do. And that's okay, because, well, I guess it depends on where you anchor your beliefs. And the flavor of Christianity that I grew up with was very much a literalist interpretation of the Bible, which can be problematic, especially because you have accounts. You have accounts that were. I think when we're talking about the life of Christ, I don't think that the oral accounts were generational, but the first written documents were decades after the death of Christ. And if you to be respectable, but decades after the death and resurrection of Christ. I think it was something in the neighborhood of, the first accounts were recorded 40 years after the death and resurrection of Christ. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, and then, but the last Gospels, I think it was the book of John. The Gospel of John wasn't written until about 90 years after the death and resurrection of Christ. So, as far as ancient texts go, that's pretty close, but it's not like people were writing down the words of Jesus verbatim. And, you have layers of language translations to have to consider as well. So
Yeah, I guess my question was more along the lines of, is there another delineation that you're aware of that that person could have also referenced, such as the teachings of one of the other apostles, or was it very specifically Paul versus the rest of the teachings of Christianity? I guess the question is more, was it subdivided up in that way where you could say, well, there's a theme, but you also have to remember that this particular section is taught by whoever, and this particular section is taught by whoever, and there's a bias that may or may not be present. Like, were they approaching it from that standpoint, or were they approaching it from the standpoint of there are two different gospels, that are two different sets of teachings, one being Paul being a primary writer, and the other being everything else?
yeah, I think that's where it's a little bit tricky in that in church they don't teach this to you. Like there's a lot of the Bible that you're probably familiar with the Gnostic text. I haven't read any of them, but you have the Book of Thomas, which was the disciple that doubted Jesus, and you have, I think Mary Magdalene had a book, and those were rejected around 30 CE when in the Council of Nicaea, and there was so 300 years after the death and resurrection of Christ, there was the Council of Nicaea that met that basically canonized the scriptures, and there were lots of Hebrew manuscripts and Greek manuscripts, and they were, I guess, voted upon. I don't recall the exact process that they did, but they basically accepted and rejected certain texts, and so you kind of ended up with a sort of a blend of historical traditions and strong theological claims that are framed as historical certainties, and they're not really that. They are not the literal words of Jesus. They're not his direct saying. So, whereas I was going to say the flavor of Christianity that I grew up with was that, like, the Bible was perfect. Like, God supernaturally kept that text, his message in that book, perfect, and is exactly what he wants you to know.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up with very similar explanations. It was the Word of God. Yeah, it was very explicitly. Yeah, it sounds like, to answer my question more succinctly, it sounds like it was meant to be more of an acknowledgement of the shortcomings of the text than it was to try to be an argument specifically about, like, the teachings of one person over the other. Just to kind of dumb it down as much as possible. But even then, I find that to be a problematic argument because the overall themes are still the same.
Yeah, I think somebody that said those are that's the teachings of Paul, not the teachings of Christ, and it's not necessarily, they were really pushing into that's not Christian because it wasn't Christ. I think that was meant to. I don't think it came from a place of.
It was meant
sincerity,
more debate to try to be right than
try to discredit. And I'm like, it's an interesting concept, but it's like where I think you can clearly see there are certain things that were important to Paul that were not necessarily important to Jesus. And I think what the Christians have told me is that it's like, well, he came after and he was saying these things, and I was like, well, let's go back to what Jesus said. And it's like, it wasn't important. And for example, homosexuality wasn't that important to Jesus, and that's already a highly misunderstood topic anyway. I was doing some reading about that, and one of the things, because I'd heard a pastor say that when Paul mentions homosexuality, it actually is pedophilia, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I did a little reading into that, and I was like, well, it's not exactly pedophilia, but historical context was in in Greco-Roman times, there was not like the idea of consensual, equal, heterosexual couple didn't exist, and most heterosexual relationships were older man with younger, many times boy, and so when Paul references homosexuality, he's referencing the oppressive nature of that relationship between the older man and the younger boy, and I found that really interesting.
Yeah, I did not know all of the context, but I knew that it was not as we interpret it now. I'll put it that way, or not as certain groups interpret it now, because realistically, and I guess I could technically, it may not.
Exploitive was the word.
Yeah, my understanding is that there is no concept of homosexuality as we define it today that actually appears in the religious texts.
And we know that's from secular texts, from the Greeks, that we know that like a lot of the Greek philosophers that shaped modern or the Western philosophy were in those sort of exploitive relationships.
Right.
So to take that word and say, oh yeah, that means that boys and girls can't be with boys and girls is
it's
a misunderstanding.
Well, it's attempting to apply modern cultural and societal norms to something where that did not exist.
It kind of reminds me of a comedian. He's from Tennessee, and his name is Billy Wayne Davis. If you haven't listened to him, please do. I've sent you. I know I've sent you a clip, but his parent. He's funny because he's got a thick Southern accent. And he goes, "There's just certain things I can't say, with this accent. It just doesn't come across right." But he was talking about living in Seattle and his mom and dad coming to visit, and his mom wanting to go to a WNBA game. His parents went. He did not go. They came back. She said, she's like, "I think I'm homophobic." And he goes, "Oh." He's like, "Yeah, I saw these lesbians." And she whispers, "Lesbians." He goes, "Mom." He said, "Mom, you can say lesbians. That's their preferred term." And she's like, I think I'm homophobic because I didn't like seeing them kissing in that stadium, during the breaks. And he's like, "Well, do you? If that was a straight couple, would it have bothered you?" And she was like, "Yes." He's like, "Mom, you don't like PDA. You're not homophobic." It was really cute. It was really cute.
I lived in Seattle for a while, and they came to visit my parents. And there's a WNBA team there named the Seattle Storm. And I was like, "Is there anything you guys want to do while you're here? Like anything special?" And my mom was like, "I want to go see that Seattle Storm play." And I was like, "Why?" She's like, "'Cause their name's I Hate You So Much." Smart ass. I was a professional smart ass. I had no interest in going in the game, and my dad was like, "I like fundamental basketball." You gotta listen to him. He's kind of mean. So I got them tickets. They went to the game. They came back. My dad walked past me like nothing happened. I was like, "Hey, Mom, what's going on? How was the game?" "It was great. I think I might be homophobic." What happened at the game? She's like, "Well, they were great seats. Thank you so much. We're down close." And action started happening. We were having fun. And then there was like a timeout. And then there were a lot of lesbians there. I was like, "You don't have to whisper that word." That's their preferred word. She said, "Okay. Well, there are a lot of... I can't not whisper it. I don't know why." I was like, "Okay, there are a lot of lesbians there, Mom." "Yeah." And she was like, "Yeah." And then when there's the timeout, they'd all start making out and like their tongues going everywhere. I was like, "Oh, I don't like this." I was like, "Huh." Well, if there had been a bunch of straight couples there, making out during the timeout. Would that have bothered you? Yes. Stop making me see your tongue in public. I don't like that. I'm like, oh, Mom, you don't like public displays of affection, PDA. You're not homophobic. And she was like, oh, thank God. It's in there. I didn't like it, but it was in there, you know? And that was the moment where I was like, oh, this is how I am the way I am. Because my neurotic mother my whole life has been like, have you worried about something that doesn't exist and can't happen yet? She go worry about that.
I do wonder how many older people that would actually apply to if they were to think about it.
Well, it's kind of like respect when people say, you need to respect me. And I was like, you don't just respect somebody because they exist and they have some certain position. Respect has to be earned.
Yeah, there's a cultural shift that happened there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I've always felt that way. And
where
I've made it very clear, like, I also don't necessarily respect authority. Like, and that's a different thing. Like, one, I don't respect you just because of who you are or anything else, but I also don't respect you because of your position. Right. And I also don't just acquiesce to your authority if I don't believe you have authority. Like, there's a very rebellious streak there.
I will, there's a certain, it's like, I remember, so even though I will disagree with her and I don't have respect for her as a person because of the misinformation she spreads, I will refer to Marjorie Taylor Greene as Representative Greene or Congresswoman Greene because that's the position she's gotten to. People have elected her to that position, and there's a certain level of, I'll show the respect that you got there, whether I like you or not, but there's a way to be critical and be respectful. And that's what I think, coming back around here, that's what people have forgotten or can't tolerate anymore. And it's like, I won't tolerate the evil things a person says. I won't tolerate the intolerant things that people say. But if somebody has something good to say, whether or not I agree with it, I will respect that and respect their right to say that. If Charlie Kirk wanted to say something problematic about DEI and he had a good argument for it and he used respectful terms and wasn't inflammatory and people didn't have to defend him by saying, well, he just wasn't being politically correct. I don't care about political correctness. I care about respectfulness. If you have something to say that's negative and something that I disagree with and you say it in a respectful way, and you know what? You don't even have to support it. You can be respectful, and if you're not spreading misinformation, I'll respect your right to say that. But I'll respectfully disagree with you. And there's nothing wrong with that. The inability for people to be able to have civil discourse and disagree with one another in a constructive way has long since gone.